You can say no, she said, biting her thumbnail. Eyes locked on mine like this was some casual negotiation. I didn't speak. My tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth, and all I could think was, she's rehearsed this. She's practiced this in the mirror. I mean it, Nolan, she continued, voice steady, too steady. No guilt. I just need, one night, with someone else, just to know. Know what? She never said, and I never asked, because my brain was trying to reboot like a frozen laptop. The silence between us was louder than any screaming match could have been. The worst part? There was no fight, no yelling, no betrayal to uncover. She handed me the grenade without even pulling the pin and waited for me to decide whether we'd blow up. I wasn't built for this kind of moment. I'm the guy who apologizes to the barista if my order takes too long. I overtip. I overthink. I underreact. And that's exactly what I did. I sat there, eyes glassy, hands shaking under the table. One night, one man, one request I never imagined hearing, not from her. She poured herself more wine like she'd just asked me if we could repaint the bathroom. I thought honesty was the whole point of marriage, she said softly, eyes never leaving her glass. You ever feel your own soul deflate, like someone poked a hole in it, and all the warmth leaked out? I nodded. That's all I could do. I nodded like a coward while a part of me screamed inside my skull. Say something. Fight. Don't just let this happen. But I didn't fight. I didn't even cry. Not right away. Instead, I waited until she left the room. And then I sat on the floor, knees up to my chest, shaking like a leaf in the middle of a thunderstorm I never saw coming. I stayed there for 2 hours. Not moving. Not thinking. Just letting the weight of her words press down on me like concrete. The next morning, I made her 2 choices. One in an envelope. One face-to-face. I told her she had until sunset to pick. She laughed at first, but she wasn't laughing when she opened it. And neither of us were ready for what came next. She walked back into the kitchen like it was any other lazy Sunday morning. Hair tied up, oversized sweater slipping off one shoulder, holding her phone like she hadn't just shattered the air between us the night before. I had made coffee, but only for her. Not because I was being sweet, because I was hollow. And I didn't want the caffeine making me feel anything sharper than the dull ache that already sat in my chest. When she sat down at the table, there was a cream envelope placed beside her plate. She stared at it like it was ticking, and in a way it was. She looked up at me. What's this? I didn't answer right away. My voice hadn't fully returned yet. It felt stuck somewhere in my ribs. But I leaned back in the chair across from her and managed to say, 2 choices. You asked for a night with someone else. I'm giving you a way to get it. But I'm also giving you something else. It's your call. She didn't reach for it. Not yet. She studied me, probably trying to figure out if this was some dramatic, emotional stunt. It wasn't. It was survival. I needed to do something. Anything. To regain control over a situation that had made me feel so disturbingly small. I don't want to hurt you, she finally said, barely above a whisper. You already did, I replied. So now it's just about how deep the cut goes. After a pause, she opened the envelope. Inside were 2 sheets of paper. One was typed. One was handwritten. She read the typed one first. Option 1. You go through with your night. I won't stop you. But I also won't be here when you come home. The door will be locked. Your belongings packed. Your ring left in the kitchen drawer where I won't have to see it again. She looked up, her eyes scanning me. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I wasn't bluffing either. Then she unfolded the second sheet. The handwritten one. Sloppier. Rushed. But more personal. Option 2. We go somewhere, just the 2 of us. No phones. No work. No distractions. We reconnect. Or at least try to. You give this marriage one honest chance before throwing a grenade into it. If you can't do that, then maybe it's not me you've outgrown. Maybe it's your own reflection. Her hands trembled. She read it again. I could tell, even without her saying a word, that she hadn't expected this. She thought I'd either explode or silently submit. She wasn't prepared for an ultimatum wrapped in calmness. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said finally. Too late, I said, quieter than I meant to. She folded both sheets and held them in her lap. Then she asked the one question I wasn't ready for. Who typed the first one? I hesitated. I could have lied. Said I wrote it myself. But I didn't. Colton, I said. My brother helped. I couldn't think straight. He's the only one I told. Her jaw locked. You told him? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insane that that was her concern. You asked me for permission to sleep with another man. But sure, let's be mad about my brother giving me formatting tips. Her face flushed. Not from shame. From frustration. The kind you see when someone realizes they've lost the upper hand in a conversation they thought they control. She stood, walked over to the sink, turned on the water like she needed noise to think. I watched her silhouette in the window's reflection. I waited. Finally, she turned around. I need time. No, I said, standing too. You need to decide. Time's not going to make this clearer. You already know what you want. You just don't like how it looks out loud. That silenced her. For the first time in 2 days, she had nothing clever to throw back at me. She just stared. Hollow. Like I'd said the things she'd been terrified to admit. And then she walked out. Not storming. Not crying. Just left. The screen door tapped shut behind her. I didn't know where she was going. I didn't follow. I just stood there, alone in our silent house, wondering what happens when the person you built everything around quietly starts tearing it down and hands you the hammer to finish the job. The clock above the stove ticked. I waited. She didn't come back by sunset. And that's when I made a third choice. One I didn't write down. One I never planned on. But one that changed everything. I sat on the living room floor for what felt like hours, though I never looked at a clock. The TV was off. The lights were dim. I didn't even realize I was still holding the envelope until it slipped from my hand and landed face down, almost symbolically, like even paper didn't want to carry the weight of what had just happened. Tessa hadn't texted. She hadn't called. I didn't know if she was walking around the block to cool off, or packing a weekend bag at her friend Janie's place, or sitting across a table from some man with a jawline and confidence I'd never have. But she was gone. Physically. Emotionally? She'd left months ago. I just hadn't been smart enough to notice. The third choice, it came out of nowhere. It wasn't typed. It wasn't written down. It wasn't even something I'd fully thought through. But it came fast. Fierce. Quiet. Like a whisper in a burning building. I grabbed the house key from the bowl beside the front door, slid it into a Ziploc bag, and walked to the garage. There, wedged between a half-deflated beach ball and a snow shovel we hadn't used in 2 winters, was a cardboard box I hadn't opened since before we got married. Inside it, my old journals. Receipts from our first vacation together. A photo strip of us in Atlantic City, blurry from humidity and cheap booth ink. And taped to the bottom, like some ironic little relic, was the lease from my first apartment. Still in my name. Still active, apparently, since the guy who sublet it never changed the paperwork. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't even bring a toothbrush. I just grabbed a hoodie, a water bottle, and my wallet. Then I left a sticky note on the fridge. You wanted a night of freedom. You got it. I wanted a choice. So I made mine too. And I walked out. The old apartment smelled like forgotten dust and stale wood. I cracked a window and sat on the floor, surrounded by emptiness. No TV. No rug. No framed pictures of someone who no longer knew if she loved me. It was pathetic. It was lonely. And it was mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to beg for space in my own life. I thought I'd sleep. I didn't. I lay there on the hardwood, staring up at a ceiling I used to daydream under when I was 25 and thought real love meant just saying the words and bringing someone soup when they got sick. Turns out, love is murkier, slipperier. And sometimes it asks you to agree to your own heartbreak for the sake of someone else's self-discovery. By morning, I had 5 missed calls. 2 from Tessa. 3 from Janie. No voicemails. I didn't answer. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Tessa. Just one line. Where are you? No apology. No explanation. Not even punctuation. Just a cold breadcrumb, like I was supposed to follow it back to whatever warped version of us still existed. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, a knock came at the apartment door. I didn't move. I just listened as it came again. And again. Then silence. Then a voice. Nolan. Please. I didn't go through with it. I didn't breathe. I didn't trust that I wouldn't yell, or cry, or crumble right in front of her if I opened the door. I panicked, she said. I drove for hours. I ended up at Janie's, but I couldn't even explain what I'd done. I couldn't sleep. I didn't think you'd really leave. I was trying to be honest. I thought we were past hiding things. Still, I didn't speak. I didn't sleep with anyone, she whispered. I couldn't. I kept seeing your face. That hit harder than I thought it would. She stayed there, behind the door, for another 5 minutes. Then I heard her walk away. That night, I finally replied. You didn't need to sleep with someone else to break this. You did it the second you asked. Her reply came almost instantly. Please come home. But I wasn't sure where home was anymore. Not when trust had been traded for curiosity. Not when silence felt safer than her voice. And not when the third choice I never planned to make suddenly felt like the only one that still belonged to me. The next day, I sat at a diner off Route 76, nursing a coffee that had long since gone cold. The waitress asked if I wanted a refill twice. I said no both times. I didn't even know why I was there. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't thinking. I guess I just needed a place that didn't have her scent on the couch cushions or lipstick prints on wine glasses. Somewhere anonymous. Somewhere she'd never think to look. I kept my phone on silent, but I could still see the notifications stacking up. Missed calls, unread messages, a voicemail from her mom of all people. I never expected to be here, thrown out of the life I built with my own hands, exiled from my own bedroom, treated like a speed bump in someone else's self-discovery journey. And what bothered me most wasn't just the betrayal of the idea, it was how calm she had been while doing it. That wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment impulse. It was cold, clean, pre-planned. She'd thought about this for a while, and when she told me, there wasn't even a hint of fear in her voice. No shame. Just a woman who had decided she was owed something and assumed I'd be the one to gift wrap it for her. I scrolled back through her first text, the one where she said she hadn't gone through with it. I believed her. Not because she deserved the benefit of the doubt, but because I knew her. And I also knew that if she had gone through with it, she wouldn't have told me. She would have buried it under some fake date night and pretend laughter until I found out by accident 5 years later in a tearful confession that would explain everything. But here's what twisted my stomach even harder. Deep down, I think she wanted me to say yes. Not just so she could explore. Not just so she could feel desired. But because if I agreed to it, then she wouldn't have to carry the guilt alone. She could file it under mutual decision and move on. Clean hands. Shared blame. That's what hurt most. I went back to the apartment and stared at the blank walls again. I hadn't slept properly in days. My thoughts wouldn't shut up. They ran in loops, things I should have said, things I shouldn't have tolerated, times she made me feel small and I just let it happen. Later that night, she sent another message. Longer this time. I know I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, not yet. I'm just trying to be honest with myself. I never wanted to lose you, but I felt trapped in my own skin and didn't know how to talk about it. I never expected you to leave like that. You shocked me, Nolan. I need to see you. It wasn't the kind of message that came from someone who wanted to burn things down. It sounded like it came from someone who finally realized what they'd done too late. Still, I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and started writing everything I'd never had the guts to say. Not just about the night, but about everything. Every chipped piece of our foundation. The things I ignored. The small humiliations I swallowed in silence. Like when she corrected me in front of her coworkers, laughing at my outdated taste in music like I was her dumb little brother. Or when she scrolled through Instagram during dinner while I talked about my day. Or how she stopped asking about my job the second her title got upgraded. She hadn't just asked for permission to cheat. She'd spent the past 2 years slowly eroding the idea that I mattered, without ever saying the words. And I let her. I fed the machine. I said I was fine when I wasn't. I apologized for things I didn't do just to keep the peace. I made her feel like the only person in the room, while I became invisible. Now she wanted to talk. Now that I was gone. Now that she realized I could disappear, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I closed the note and finally sent her one message. I'll meet you tomorrow, but not at home. I picked the one place we never went together, the pier by the old train station. It was ugly, always smelled like rust and mildew, but it had one thing I needed: distance. Enough to hear her without drowning in the familiarity of everything she'd poisoned. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know what she would say either. But I knew one thing for sure. This wouldn't be the kind of reunion she was hoping for. Because I wasn't the same man who let her talk me into silence anymore. The pier was nearly empty when I got there. Cold air coming off the lake made the wind sharp enough to sting my face, but I welcomed it. I stood near the rusted railing and watched the water pitch against the rocks like it was trying to escape the shoreline. I got there early on purpose. I needed to be there first. I needed the moment to be mine before she arrived and tried to shape it into whatever version made her feel less guilty. She showed up exactly 21 minutes late. I counted, not because I cared about the time, but because I was tired of being the one who waited for her, emotionally, mentally, always 2 steps behind her shadow. When I saw her walking toward me, hands buried in her coat pockets, face red from either the cold or crying or both, I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't offer comfort. She stopped about 3 feet away from me and just stood there, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to speak. I could see her eyes scanning me like she was searching for the old version of me, the one who would look at her with open arms and a soft heart. But he was gone. That version of me had been buried the moment she said she wanted someone else, even for just one night. I didn't know how to say what I was feeling, she began, her voice fragile, almost cracking. I've been so confused. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't even really about the other man. I said nothing. She looked down, her boots scraping at a loose nail sticking out of the boardwalk. It was about me. I felt like I was losing something inside myself, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought maybe stepping outside the lines would wake me up or give me perspective. I was wrong. The word wrong echoed in my head like a bell with a hollow ring. She didn't say sorry. Not really. Just wrong. Like this had been a minor misstep, not an act of psychological warfare that left me questioning whether I had ever really mattered to her. I stayed at Janie's, she said. I didn't see anyone. I just cried. And when you didn't come home, I thought I'd broken something we couldn't get back. I finally spoke. You didn't break something, Tess. You opened it up and decided to play with the pieces. You wanted to see what it would feel like to hold power over me, and you did. For a while. But now that I've finally walked away, it scares you. She blinked like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't yelling. My voice was calm. Cold, maybe, but calm. It was the most honest I'd been in years. I didn't ask you to agree with it, she said. I just wanted to be transparent. No, I snapped. You wanted permission. You wanted me to say yes, so you wouldn't have to be the villain. You didn't want honesty, you wanted cover. She stepped closer, but I took a step back. And that broke her composure. Her eyes glassed over, and her lips started to tremble. I was scared, she whispered, of waking up one day and resenting you. I thought if I just experienced something different for one night, I could come back better. More grounded. More certain. You were already allowed to be uncertain, I said. You just weren't allowed to treat me like a placeholder while you figured yourself out. The silence between us felt heavier than any argument could have. She stared at me for a long time before finally asking, Do you still love me? I wanted to lie. I wanted to say no just to protect myself. But I couldn't. Yes, I said, but I don't trust you. And I don't know if I ever will again. That version of me, the one who trusted you without hesitation, he's gone. You didn't just ask for a night. You asked me to cut off the part of myself that believed in you. She covered her face with both hands and cried, full-on cried. And I just watched. No hugging. No rescuing. Just silence and wind and the sound of her realizing what she'd actually done. Then, quietly, she asked the question I hoped she wouldn't. Is there someone else now? I laughed, not out of joy, but disbelief. No, Tess. I didn't walk away to find someone new. I walked away to find what was left of me. We stood there like strangers, broken pieces of a love that used to feel unshakable. And then she said something that threw me. I want to fix this. If you'll let me. I want to go to therapy. I want to earn you back. But the thing was, I didn't know if I wanted to be earned anymore. I didn't want to go back to something that had already been cracked open and stitched together with conditions. I told her I'd think about it. And when she reached for my hand, I didn't take it. I just turned, walked back down the pier, and let her stand there alone, like she had left me, days before, in that kitchen with a glass of wine and a wrecking ball of a confession. I didn't sleep that night either. Not because I was angry. I think that part had started to dull, like an old bruise that still hurts when you press on it, but you've learned how to avoid touching it. What kept me up was the weight of that sentence she left me with. I want to fix this. It wasn't the words themselves, it was how they came out of her mouth. Like she was trying to reclaim something she'd only just realized she'd lost. But I couldn't help wondering, did she want me? Or did she just want the comfort of not being the person who burned down a marriage? Around 3 a.m., I got up and paced the apartment barefoot. The hardwood felt cold, grounding. That apartment wasn't much, but at least it was mine again. I looked around at the bare walls and quiet corners and started asking myself the kind of questions I had spent years avoiding. Not just about her, but about me. Who was I in that relationship? Had I really been a partner, or just a prop? A predictable, gentle, passive fixture in the background of her life? That morning, I called her. My hands were shaking the entire time. I expected her to pick up on the first ring, but she didn't. It took 3. Nolan. Her voice was soft, cautious. She sounded like someone afraid to touch glass that's already cracking. I've thought about it, I said. And I'm not coming back. Not to the house. Not to what we had. That version of us is dead. But I'll give you the chance to prove that you actually want something better. Not just something safe. That is, if you're serious. She didn't speak right away. When she finally did, I could hear the hope rising through her breath. What do you mean? I mean, if you want to fix this, then we start over. As two people, not as husband and wife. I'm not wearing my ring. And neither are you. No pretending we're fine. You'll meet me like you would someone you're dating for the first time. No sleepovers. No pretending this is still normal. If you want to rebuild this, then start from the rubble. She agreed without hesitation. That, in itself, shocked me. The first meeting happened the following weekend. I told her to pick a place we'd never been. She chose a botanical garden outside the city. I wore jeans into flannel. She wore the dress I used to say made her look like a watercolor painting, except now it looked like something borrowed from another life. We walked for 2 hours. No touching. Just conversation. She asked questions she never used to care about. What music I'd been listening to. What I'd been cooking. She actually listened this time. I wasn't ready to believe her yet, but I was willing to observe. That was the deal. What threw me off the most was what she didn't do. She didn't try to win me over with romance. No nostalgia bombs. No flirty hand-holding. She actually stayed back. Like she understood, finally, that this wasn't about seduction, it was about respect. About proving she could show up without trying to manipulate the tone of the room. But it wasn't all progress. 2 weeks in, she slipped. Said something offhand about how nice it felt not to walk on eggshells anymore. I stopped mid-step, turned, and stared at her. You walked on eggshells? I asked, my voice low. She looked down, realizing her mistake instantly. I didn't mean it like that, she said. I just meant, before all this, I felt like I couldn't speak freely. So instead of speaking freely, I said, you asked to sleep with someone else? She didn't answer. We both stood there, awkwardly framed by flower beds and strangers passing by with iced coffees and strollers. I walked away that day without saying goodbye. I needed her to feel what it was like to be the one left behind for once. She didn't text until late that night. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. She just said, I understand now. I really do. Please don't give up on me yet. I stared at the message for 10 straight minutes. My heart was telling me one thing. My pride was telling me another. But somewhere deeper, under the pain, the confusion, the humiliation, was a voice I hadn't heard in a while. A quiet, careful voice saying, if she really means it, she won't stop trying. And if she does stop trying, well, then I'd finally have the answer I hadn't dared to face before. I didn't reply to her text. Not out of cruelty, but because I didn't want to hear promises. I wanted to see what she'd do when silence wasn't easy. 3 days passed before I heard from her again. No texts. No calls. Nothing. The silence felt oddly peaceful, like coming up for air after treading water for too long. I half expected her to barge in, demand resolution, try to patch things with grand statements about soulmates and mistakes in timing. But nothing came. And I wondered, was she respecting my boundaries, or had she quietly decided I wasn't worth chasing anymore? I didn't reach out either. I told myself I was observing, but part of me was still raw, still licking the wound she'd left the second she said those words, just one night. People talk a lot about forgiveness like it's a conscious choice, but they never talk about how your body remembers betrayal even after your mind tries to move on. Every time my phone lit up, my stomach tightened. I developed a reflex, half hope, half dread. Then, on the 4th day, she sent a photo. It was the botanical garden bench we had sat on weeks ago. Empty. Wet from a morning drizzle. Underneath, it was a folded piece of paper weighed down by a single yellow daisy. No caption. No explanation. I stared at the screen for a long time before driving back out there. Not because I needed closure, but because curiosity and heartbreak are twin siblings that refuse to let go of your shirt collar. The bench was exactly like the photo. And so was the note. I unfolded it with hands that weren't quite steady and read her handwriting, which looked different now, shaky, not polished like usual. I lied to myself before I lied to you. I told myself it was harmless. That one night wouldn't mean anything. But even asking for it poisoned everything we built. I don't want to start over because it's easy. I want to start over because I finally understand what I put at risk. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just folded the note and slid it into my back pocket. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was the first thing that didn't feel rehearsed. The next day, she texted again. I've been going to therapy. Alone. Twice a week. No pressure, but I wanted you to know. I still didn't respond. But something shifted. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't ask for praise, or that she did it without trying to wave a banner about how much she was growing. It was the first time in years I'd seen her take responsibility without turning it into a performance. A week later, I agreed to another meetup. This time, she picked a local shelter where she volunteered to walk rescue dogs. I showed up expecting some orchestrated show of redemption, but instead, she handed me a leash and said, "This one pulls, so hang on tight." We walked in silence at first, two strangers tethered to animals more loyal than either of us had been. Then slowly, we talked. Not about us. Not about the betrayal. Just about life. Her work. My brother. How quiet the apartment felt. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was bracing for a hit. But that night, everything flipped again. Around midnight, I got a message. Not from her. From an unknown number. "Hey, you don't know me, but I thought you should know what your wife was doing at the bar tonight. She wasn't alone. Ask her." I froze. My heart thudded in my ears. I tried calling the number back, but it was disconnected or blocked. I didn't sleep. My brain played out 100 scenarios. Maybe it was someone messing with me. Maybe it was a lie. Or maybe, just maybe, Tessa had cracked again. The next morning, I called her. She answered on the second ring. "Were you at a bar last night?" I asked, no emotion in my voice. Just cold, surgical curiosity. She was silent for a second. "Yes." After volunteering, I stopped for a drink with one of the shelter staff. Just a drink. I didn't think I needed to report it. "You didn't think someone would?" I asked, and she went dead silent. "Nolan," she said slowly, "if you think I'm lying, ask to see my location history. Or better yet, come talk to the staff. I'm not hiding anything." She sounded sincere, but so had she before. I told her I needed time. Again. That night, I sat in my apartment and thought about how trust isn't something that returns in full, it comes back in splinters. And each time something like this happens, those splinters shift, stab, and dig in deeper. Even if she hadn't done anything wrong, the damage was already there. And that's when I made my decision. She'd been trying to prove she could rebuild what she broke. But now it was my turn to test her. I crafted a message. Not to accuse her. Not to attack her. But to force her into clarity. "I'm giving you the same offer you gave me. One night. No rules. Do what you want. Just be honest about it. I want to see who you really are when I'm the one holding the door open." I had sinned. Then I waited. I didn't check my phone for hours after I sent that message. I needed space from it. From her. From the entire mess that had swallowed the last few months of my life. But I also needed to know. Not if she would say yes, but how fast she would. If she even hesitated, I would know everything I needed to know. When I finally opened my phone, her response was waiting. Just 4 words. "Come to the park." No explanation. No defense. No excuses. For a few minutes I sat frozen, unsure if this was the beginning of the end or something entirely different. But my legs moved before my brain caught up, and I found myself driving to that small park behind the library, the one with the old rusted swing set and the overgrown rose bushes no one had bothered to trim in years. She was already there. Standing alone under the gazebo, her hair pulled back, no makeup, sweater too big for her frame. She looked nothing like the woman who once confidently asked me for a night with someone else. And everything like the woman I used to love before she forgot how to see me. When she saw me walking up, she didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just held something out toward me. A crumpled piece of paper, folded 3 times, edges frayed. I took it, slowly. Unfolded it. It was the original note I'd written to her, the one that outlined the 2 choices I gave her. She had kept it this whole time. On the back, in her handwriting, were the words. "You gave me a 3rd choice." I didn't take it. She looked me in the eyes and said quietly, "I stayed home. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to be tested, Nolan. I wanted to prove that I don't need conditions or punishments to choose you. Not anymore." I couldn't speak. I wanted to believe her. But belief had become a muscle I hadn't used in so long it felt like it would snap under pressure. "I talked to the guy who texted you," she continued. "It was my coworker. The one who heard about what happened. He thought he was protecting you, but he didn't know the full story. When I told him what I'd done, how I'd hurt you, he felt bad. He thought I was out with someone new. I wasn't." I studied her face. It was honest. Exhausted. Hopeful in a way that didn't beg, it waited. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. "But I'd spend the rest of my life proving I can become the person who does." For the first time in weeks, I let myself feel something other than fear or anger. I let the silence between us stretch, but this time, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an opening. Okay, I said finally. But this doesn't mean we're fixed. It means we're trying. For real this time. No pretending. No skipping the hard parts. She nodded, tears in her eyes. No skipping. We stood there for a long time without saying anything else. Just two people, flawed, bruised, stubborn, choosing to show up one more time. She reached out her hand, not to pull me in, but just to offer it. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I took it. Not because I forgot what she did, but because I remembered who we were before we broke. And maybe, just maybe, we could build something stronger from the wreckage. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And real was enough.